freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your mega preview pod for this week's AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. It's storylines, it's best bets. It is the one and done. Joining me to break it all down, Patrick McDonald is here. Patrick, good day, sir.
Good day. Good to be back. One and done, like you said. Rick,
you and me, baby. Let's go.
Feels good chasing down Kyle, but yeah, pumped. A lot of news, a lot to talk about.
Lots to talk about. Kyle Porter is here. KP, hello to you.
Hello, Rick. Thank you for re-establishing your position as the host of this show.
Yeah.
I did not enjoy it on Saturday, but Greg and I got through, and we're back.
I thought you guys did a fine job. I thought you did a great job.
Thank you. It was fun, but it's more fun with you here.
All right. Well, much appreciated. Before we jump into the newsworthy week of things that we need to cover, David is in the chat. Now, David is our resident Kyle troll. Yeah. But mostly just towards you. David checks in here, says, and I quote, "We should probably address Philly scumbag Rick Gehman and his allegiance to the Eagles," end quote.
What does that mean? I don't understand that.
You ever been to Philly, Kyle?
Have I ever? No, I've been to Pittsburgh. I haven't been to Philly.
Okay. Pittsburgh's good people, good working class city.
What are you implying?
I don't want to be a part of this conversation. I don't think.
I'm not implying anything. I'm rooting for Philly.
What is David implying? That there's a lot of scumbags in Philadelphia? Is that what he's getting at on this one?
I don't think he's implying that. I think he is stating that pretty much.
Well, it feels a little bit like, yeah, he kind of is. It feels a little bit like he's almost saying like Rick is he's not saying this, but the implication feels like that Rick is just kind of a bandwagon Eagles guy or whatever. Which is not true.
It's not, but it kind of can be, right? I mean, like, I'm happy to be a fair weather. Like, I invoke, okay, as a Philadelphia sports fan, you are so used to failure and like something going wrong that I do not get excited until there is a parade down Broad Street, right? Like that's when I get excited. So you are. No, I just rarely invoke public fandom because it's not worth it, right? It's not worth the heartache that I'm inevitably going to receive.
Only when times are good will you claim your
Correct.
fandom.
Yes.
Okay, so Kyle, he is a fair weather fan.
Yeah, I was trying to help you out there, Rick. And I will say the Eagles 49ers game was tough for me because I made a bet with both of my sons 3 months ago, and they said they were all over the Eagles. So my sons are 9 and 6. They loved Hurts. They were all Devontae. They were all in. And I said, listen, like, the Eagles are whatever they started 10-0 right now, 8-0, whatever they were.
Yeah.
I was like, they're not going to make the Super Bowl. And I will bet you if they make the Super Bowl, I'll buy each of you 3 packs of football cards.
Oh boy.
And if they don't make the Super Bowl, I was just betting on the field, right? This is like halfway through the season. They don't really understand the longevity of a season. And if they don't make the Super Bowl, you have to buy me a pack of just 1 pack of cards. And turns out they did make the Super Bowl.
Turns out they were right.
Yeah. And that never happens, right? It's never the team that starts 8-0 that continues that makes it all the way to the Super Bowl. It just there's too much that can go wrong. And it kind of did. Hurts got hurt. There was a bunch of different things that happened, and yet they still made it. So I'm gonna be out like $40.
It was a couple sharps.
It was a pretty clear, it was a pretty easy path through the NFC, right?
I know.
The guy can't even throw a pass in the championship game.
It wasn't even like in question. Like I was just out. I mean, I didn't even have a chance.
Oh boy. Well, the Eagles will play in the Super Bowl next week, and very excited to be in Phoenix. Phoenix, Scottsdale? Are these just interchangeable? Do I have to refer to one over the other?
I've been calling it. I think they are different. I've been calling it Phoenix to my friends because I don't want to go into like TPC Scottsdale. And how close are we to the football game?
I don't know. 20 minutes. I feel like everything's 20 minutes.
Are you a veteran of that area, Patrick?
Patrick was giving
my
me
sister
our recommendations.
I was out there for a bachelor party in September.
Oh,
Okay.
So yeah, bars, clubs, whatever you guys want. Just
Wow. I'm not.
fine dining.
I'm not. If you can't tell, I'm not big in the bar club scene with
know.
4 kids right now.
weekend.
Let us know if you have any places with white tablecloths or anything like that we could frequent. I don't know how I'm going to transition this to Patrick Reed and Rory McIlroy, but
Phoenix is next week, and we need to. Before we get to Phoenix, we need to bring it back to what's going on this week.
You can tee it up somehow.
Yeah, that's right. Well, listen, there is a lot of stuff happening all over the globe, and what happened in Dubai was a doozy. So we started our week with T-Gate, which was, or Snubgate. Rory snubs Patrick Reed. Reed underhand tosses a tee at him, and then it actually plays out beautifully. So Patrick, this thing comes down to the wire here, where Reed is one group ahead of Rory McIlroy. This was a Monday finish, which is why we're talking about it right now. And Rory goes birdie on 17 and 18 to clip Patrick Reed for the win.
It's pretty incredible that like both these guys, I guess not Rory, he's just been playing at such an elevated pace past year pretty much, but Reed and Rory both elevated their game, I guess, in this, just unbelievable controversy between the two of them. The violent throw of the tee was something I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy personally. I'm glad Rory's okay. But I will say this in regard to Patrick Reed. I thought for T-Gate, I have two takes on T-Gate. First one's a bit more tame. We need to get better at naming these things. I understand the Watergate Hotel. That's where it came from. We're past that as a country.
Yeah, I'm in on this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
it should have been.
Now you have to name it.
It should have been spill the tea or throw the tea or something like that.
I'm with that. And these T-Gate people got completely bailed out by Treegate that it just happened to rhyme.
Yeah.
They got thrown a bone. And the second thing is, I know we always talk about Rory being speaking so eloquently, which he does, and he is a smart cat by all accounts. And I think he, in his pre-tournament interview, I think he phrased the Patrick Reed's lawyer subpoenaed me on Christmas Eve on purpose, knowing, some people might run with it and be like, oh my God, Patrick Reed subpoenaed Rory McIlroy, even though, I know he's caught up in a zillion defamation cases, but that wasn't one of them. So a little hat tip to Rory there. It was a little gamesmanship, I think.
It was, because Dylan DeChair came out with the sort of details. I think it was later that day. And I don't have the tweet in front of me, and I think he wrote an article about this, but it didn't really. Reed is caught up in and this is part of the problem with Reed. He's caught up in so much stuff that he doesn't really get the benefit of the doubt. Mm-hmm. And he shouldn't get the benefit of the doubt with rules stuff, with any of it, really. And I think, to your point, Rory kind of was leveraging that a little bit, but it seemed like it was I don't know who, I need to pull it up. It was a PGA Tour and sort of, I think, Live.
Yeah. It's his lawyer.
Lawsuit.
Yeah, it's this Larry. It's Larry Klayman, who's Reed's lawyer against the PGA Tour.
Yeah,
but it was a subpoena for information from the meeting in Delaware, right? Mm-hmm. With Tiger and Rory. For some reason, he thought that information should be part of the court case with Rory. But you're right. I think Rory did a little bit. Throw Reed under the bus, even though Reed and Patrick Reed's made Rory's life not super smooth over the last few years, and so I sort of understand where he was coming from.
Yeah,
twice now that Rory has kind of elevated to victory in the midst of some wild stuff. Obviously, this past week there was the Canadian Open when all that stuff was breaking with Liv. Obviously, it didn't get it done to the Open Championship, but hey, 2 out of 3 ain't bad if you're Meatloaf. Now, the Treegate portion of this, did you get that reference, Patrick, or is that you're too young for that one? Yeah, you didn't. I don't know if you got that one.
I'm from Washington D.C. I've been to the Watergate Hotel. We were talking about clubs. It's a great rooftop bar, but I think we just got to move past it.
We do. Real quick, this is from Dylan DeChair. Reed isn't personally suing Rory, which is what Patrick was referencing. Larry Klayman is Reed's lawyer. We know that. Klayman is separately suing the PGA Tour, so it's not the Live PGA Tour law. It's not the Matt Jones against the PGA Tour lawsuit, which is kind of the big one that we've been talking about over the last 7 months. Rory got a subpoena for that lawsuit, Larry Klayman against the PGA Tour, and it came at his house on Christmas Eve. That's all from Dylan DeChair. And Klayman, if you don't know, Patrick Reed's lawyer, has sued pretty much, if you've heard of a public figure, Larry Klayman has sued them. He sued Barack Obama. He sued the Clintons like 10 times. He's sued everybody. He sued his own mom one time for $50,000, which is
bold
just
choice.
Did he win?
I don't think so. He hasn't won anything. I don't understand how he makes money by losing all these lawsuits, and I don't understand why anybody would ever hire him. So anyway, we can move past that to the tree thing.
The tree thing. Yes. So coming down the stretch, I believe it's 17, there are a cluster of 3 palms on the side of the fairway. Now we can see via video evidence that Patrick Reed's golf ball seemingly hits tree number 1, gets lodged inside of it. We've seen this happen in palms before. Balls get stuck in there. Where things get really interesting, Patrick, is that Patrick Reed has to identify his ball so that he can get free relief, so that he doesn't have to take an unplayable. He is capable of identifying his ball. However, we come to learn that he was looking in the wrong tree. He was looking in tree number 2. Tree number 3, that ball's in tree number 1. And he confirms, yes, I see my ball, gets his free drop. And we've got another Patrick Reed. Did he not cheat situation?
He did. But yeah, I think there's tree 1 and then there's the pair.
Yeah, I'll try to get a photo of this. Yeah.
And it was in the second one to the right. But this is like totally something that would happen at like a club championship or something where it's like, oh God, I got a lot of people behind me waiting on the tee. So
okay, show me on the screen here, Patrick, because I feel a little confusion and ambiguity over this.
So the single tree, that's the one that allegedly, I know I just came out and pretty aggressively accused him, but that's the one that allegedly caught his ball.
Right. Okay. This angle that we're on is the Golf Channel camera that was following his tee shot.
But the one on the left, closer to the desert, is where he took his unplayable from.
Okay.
And so he's saying he was looking at that tree, saying, "Oh yeah, that's my golf ball up there." When the video shows his ball going into that tree.
So obviously, how could you have identified your golf ball if your golf ball was in a different tree?
And it doesn't help that these trees, they legit have like 10 golf balls in them. Like it's very common for people. Which I didn't know was really a thing, but 17 is like a cool little hole.
Here's the thing that I go back to. I don't want to get into and I know Brandel broke this down on Golf Channel. I don't want to get into a situation where it's like, okay, we're going to Zapruder film this and try to fit. The bottom line with Reed is you don't get the benefit of the doubt in any of these situations. You don't get it. And if he doesn't understand why that's the case, then he is just blind to the last 5 to 10 years of like things that have happened. I saw that Rory actually said, like, I don't really think anything was nefarious or whatever. Like, I trust the referee. And which is kind of interesting. Rory's actually always been a sort of a supporter of Reed, which is weird. Not weird, but unexpected maybe. And I saw Reed sent out a statement today.
I have it.
Okay. Do you want to read? It?
Yeah. So just I'll pull it up. I'll pull it up here in a sec. Yeah, he texted it to me directly.
Let's just say somebody had to screenshot it to me because I was not allowed to view it.
I was gonna say I pulled it up on my burner because I'm blocked by Patrick Reed.
I'm still alive.
Before I show this, I will say this reminds me a lot, Kyle, about your point being like he gets to these trees and someone says, "Oh, it went into that one." right? So then him and the officials are looking in that one and they think they've identified it. It's the same thing that happened when he was at Torrey, where he got up there and he asked the question to a volunteer, did you see it bounce? And she said, no, which doesn't mean it didn't bounce. It just means that she didn't see it bounce. He could have asked the opposite question and gotten the same answer, right?
Yep.
So
and he's looking for plausible deniability.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Here's the statement. So this is from Patrick Reed, who I texted himself, I don't know, and then took a screenshot of it and posted it on Twitter and Instagram. Quote, some people love controversy, but what happened on the 17th hole at the Hero Dubai Desert Classic was a non-issue. As the DP World Tour confirmed, I was not asked to identify the tree my ball struck. That was done by the ShotLink volunteers and several marshals.
Plausible deniability.
Correct. I was asked to describe the distinctive markings on the ball I was playing. I am looking forward to this week's Asian Tour flagship event at Royal Greens, end quote.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like he loves to, and he's done this in the past. It says, as the DP World Tour confirmed, he always puts the onus on the referee, the organization, whoever. He does this with the PGA Tour all the time. Oh, well, the official that was there confirmed this or said this or whatever.
And I did everything by the book.
Exactly. And it's like, I get why you would do that, but there's no ownership or responsibility over. And this stuff is like, a part of me feels bad for him because this stuff is hard. Like you can't see what happened. You don't have the benefit of instant replay like we do. There's a lot going on, but I just always go back to the fact that he does not get the benefit of the doubt because of what happened at the Hero World Challenge or what happened with him in college that was reported on. Like there's just been a pattern of things that preclude you from getting the benefit of the doubt in these situations.
I need to know who got the binoculars first too. Was it him looking up and saying, okay, that could potentially be my ball, and he describes the markings to the official and then the official confirms what he says to him? Or is it the opposite where the official is looking at it and he's like, all right, tell me what your ball looks like?
Yeah,
that could change the entire thing.
Is the official saying, I see a Pro V1 with a black line, and Patrick Reed goes, yeah, that's it.
And he's like, just kidding, it's an X.
Or is Patrick Reed saying, it's a Pro V1 with a black line, and the official saying, yeah, I see it.
Yeah, because he said after the round that if he would have gone back to the tee if he wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah.
So he felt like he was 100% sure. But
we need some more distinctive markings. Everybody plays a Pro V1 with a black line on it.
I was going to say how specific, like if it had, 11 red dots in the shape of a triangle, like, okay, that's probably your ball. But if it's, how many balls are up there and what were the markings of the other ball? There's a lot of stuff in play there.
Yeah.
Patrick Reed's going to have a new friend over at Live. So we are still waiting for the official stuff on Mito, but that's been pretty well reported that Mito Pereira is going to be going to Live. Also, today we learned that seemingly Mr. Sebastian Munoz is on his way. So this is from the Telegraph. They've been very good at this. They are saying Live Golf poaches another PGA Tour winner in Colombian Sebastian Munoz. So KP, probably no surprise, right? I mean, he was one of the, I think if you would have listed 20 or 30 names 6 months ago, he probably would have been on a pretty short list. I don't think it's a needle mover per se.
Was Bassi he hasn't been announced either, right?
Correct. Neither of these have been officially announced.
It's not shocking. I mean, Live clearly is going for the international player. There's a contingent, go back to when Mito lost at Southern Hills, and there was a big crew there of guys that they hang out together, they spend time together. So it's not a shocking development. I guess for me, Rick, it's kind of like, okay, is this your big splash going into year 2? And if so, I'll say this: if that's your big play going into year 2, it's over. Like, you're done. This is going to wither on the vine. It's not going to happen over the next 4 months or maybe 24 months, but that's a wrap, because you're not going to be able to continue to pour $800 million. Now it'll be less because you're not paying, you're not fronting the money for Bryson Brooks, Phil, etc. But you're not going to be able to pour hundreds of millions of dollars into something that just continues to make a couple $1,000 at each tournament. So you have to have momentum, and they don't have any right now. If Sebastian Munoz is your momentum, you're done. Like, you're cooked.
Yeah, we've talked about it a little bit before, Patrick, how quiet the offseason has been. And there's been an idea that, okay, well, before the season starts, they're going to have more names. Well, we are a couple weeks away. This is the Saudi International Week, which is basically the preseason for Live, and their official schedule starts in a couple of weeks here in February. If the only other names going are Mito Pereira and Sebastian Munoz, Kyle's right. Tough scene.
I would love to know what that conversation is like behind closed doors, of the trade-off of, we could add Mito and Sebastian Munoz, but it might mean we have to leave, a bigger name down the road out or something like that, who wants more money or whatever it may be. Because like Kyle said, these guys aren't moving the needle, at least here in the United States. They could in South America. I wouldn't know. But it's these middle tier, borderline top 100 players in the world. It's Mito, obviously flash in the pan at Southern Hills, Munoz, a winner. It's just not enough at all to carry what little, if any, momentum moving forward. So I don't understand the signings except for we get a PGA Tour winner type of deal.
I'll say this, and I started to write a little bit about this over the weekend. I feel frustration over Liv's existence for a number of reasons, but one of them is that we don't get, because you've got all these guys like Reed and Bryson and Brooks and Phil and several others, mostly those guys that are sort of can be villainous, maybe not necessarily Phil, but definitely Reed and Bryson and Brooks. You and we've talked about this before, but you remove all those from the PGA Tour, and you're left with a bunch of guys that are very likable, which is great. That's good if you're the PGA Tour, but there's not that friction that we saw in Dubai between Reed and Rory on the PGA Tour. Now, you might have some guys that are young that could play the villain role or whatever that create that friction, but you lose that friction right now. And I think that's a loss for fans. Friction is good for narratives, for stories, for look at the NBA. There's Patrick Beverley running around like a maniac playing the villain all the time. And like, whatever you want to say about Patrick Beverley, that makes the NBA interesting. The NBA regular season is not it shouldn't be interesting, but it is because of people like Patrick Beverley. And you've lost a lot of those guys to Live. And we saw that in a pretty stark way during Dubai week with Reed and Rory.
Yeah, I think Harry Higgs did an interview with Golf Week at the beginning of the month, and he essentially said, yeah, we joke back and forth that they took all the a-holes, and it's like they took all the villains, and he's like, that's a problem, because whether you want to admit it or not, like controversy and I guess like talking poorly of someone or like in a negative light, people like to read, somewhat negative things, and like you said, without Patrick Reed at that tournament in Dubai, it's just Rory McIlroy won on the DP World Tour. But instead, we're talking about it now on Tuesday, and we're talking about it all weekend.
Yeah, contrasting characters make an interesting story. And I think that's what you're going to see in the Netflix documentary, is contrasting characters.
I cannot wait for that. February 15th, by the way. The Saudi International is happening this week, opposite of Pebble. And there are a couple of names that will be teeing it up that Hey, I've not pledged allegiance to Live. I'm just going to go over there and play, and I've gotten a waiver for this. Those names include Cam Young, Lucas Herbert, Johnny Vegas, and Cam Champ. So, Patrick, we have been trying to read the tea leaves of every move or non-move that every golfer has made in the last 2 years. Are there tea leaves to be read here?
I think Daniel Rappaport got a text from someone from Cam Champ's camp that said he's just playing. He'll be back on the PGA Tour.
Hey, I've heard I'm definitely not going before.
Yeah. I mean, with the South American, I guess, migration over there, you'd imagine Johnny Vegas, he's friends with all those guys. So that might be a way for him. But Cam Young's the guy at the Tour Championship who was one of the last guys in. It was like him and Joaquin Niemann. And Joaquin went, Cam Young decided to stay. So I'm imagining they're rolling out the red carpet for Cam Young this week.
What does Cam Young do for you, though? A 0-time PGA Tour winner?
I agree with that.
I do too. I think he's,
and I love him, but I agree with the whole point is Liv has a very, their window has to be someone makes a name for themselves on the PGA Tour and or in major championships or Ryder Cups, and then you get them and it's a big deal. If you get someone who would have ended up being that guy but never gets a chance to be that guy, it doesn't matter.
And here's the reason it doesn't matter, Rick, is because I was on the radio with
tough.
Don't even remember who was I on the radio with. Gary Williams the other day on, I think it was Sirius XM. And he said, what is the PGA Tour's most important asset? And I think the obvious answer is you could say Spieth or Rory or JT or Tiger, even though he doesn't really play. But the most important asset for the PGA Tour, Rick, is actually the major championships, because the major championships bring context to the regular season, the PGA, the rest of the PGA or the entire PGA Tour. Live lacks that context. You can get everybody in the world if you're Live, and if you don't have the context of what this win in Jeddah or Miami means for their major championship status, then you lose almost everything that's important about the regular season. Right? And I'm not saying if they got everybody in the world that they wouldn't be successful, because at some point there's going to be a tipping point. But I just think even getting like what if Cantlay and Xander and Ricky Fowler, and I'm just throwing names out there, Colin Morikawa, all go to Live. Without the context of the majors, it's kind of like, okay, whatever. It just, I don't know. You have to have some sort of context with something else that's more important than you as a regular season golf entity for you to really matter whatsoever, I think.
Bingo.
Well, I agree, but then you say, what would Cameron Young do? The guy who finished second at the Open, third at the PGA Championship. He's bringing that major championship context to Live potentially. But
what I'm saying is, if Cameron Young is no longer able to get into major championships,
well, they probably aren't operating under that pretense.
For sure, I agree. But we have to operate under that pretense because that's the reality of the situation right now. I don't know what reality you're living in, Patrick.
You don't want to know. There's a lot going on in the spring.
Of all the things that we've been saying for the last 18 months, the way the OWGR has played out is exactly what we all expected it to do.
Being named Patrick's a tough scene right now. God.
I didn't even put that together. That's exactly what Rory said. I didn't even down to the name.
All right. You're acting like an immature little child here, Kyle. Let's move along.
But I mean, do you agree, Rick? The major championship context is vital to a sort of regular season entity.
Yes. Yeah, of course. And I just think that Liv is just always going to be pretty hamstrung into like Cam Smith is the perfect guy. Cam Smith is the perfect guy. You get him after showing he's on top of the golfing world. Even when you get guys like Sergio and Paul Casey and Henrik Stenson, it's like, okay, who cares, right? They haven't been competitive really on the PGA Tour anyway. But there's 3 guys. There's like 3 guys that matter in that. Like the window is so small that they are going to be stuck getting Cam Tringale, Sebastian Munoz, Mito Pereira, and it's not a knock against those guys. They're great, but it's like that doesn't make a league interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree, especially when those guys are now unable to play themselves. I mean, look at Eugenio Chikara, right? Like if Eugenio Chikara, who won, where did he win? Did he win Jeddah? Bangkok. Brooks won Jeddah, I think. If he was able to play himself into the U.S. Open at LACC, and I guess he is technically through qualifiers, but if he was able to, through LIV, get into LACC in the U.S. Open, and then he contends in the U.S. Open or gets into a playoff with Morikawa or whatever, all of a sudden that makes LIV actually kind of interesting because you've got young talent that's rising up to potentially win U.S. Opens and PGA Championships and all the events that actually matter. But without that context, Eugenio Chikara is just not his story is not interesting, and therefore your league is not interesting. And we've talked about that ad nauseum, but I think it's worth repeating at this point because as LIV potentially makes a play on more and more guys.
We'll put a bow on this conversation with this, Patrick. What's the deal with the Pebble Beach Saudi International quid pro quo, right? This is something that to get the release, was it last? I don't know if they did it as well this year. The PGA Tour kind of required these guys, okay, at some point in the next 3 years, you've got to play Pebble Beach. Is that right?
That's correct. And I think Jay Bird hung out with the media at Kapalua and said
Jay Monahan, for those who are keeping track at home.
Do you guys text or something? Do you guys have nicknames for each other?
Yeah. What's he call you?
That was off the record. The nickname was.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so the quid pro, he's expecting these guys to play next year at Pebble Beach. So I looked it up today.
Next year, by next year.
So here it is. So if you played in Saudi 2022, which the big names were Xander and Finau.
Okay.
If you played Pebble the last 5 years, you need to play in 23 or 24 at Pebble. And if you haven't played Pebble the last 5 years, you need to play 2 of the next 3. And so those guys aren't playing this year. So they'd have to play Pebble the next 2 years.
I think what's interesting about that is because at the time there were no elevated events, right? And I think does Pebble at some point become an elevated event? I'm very curious, Rick, about, are we stopping at 13 or whatever the number is? Are we rotating them around? Is Pebble an elevated event 1 year or John Deere? I mean, I think there's still a lot of questions around that, and I think Xander and Finau or whoever buying themselves time to see how that goes, I think is probably wise.
They better start rotating them around, or you're going to have sponsors that are like 1 year sponsors every single year. You're just not. Who is going to be? We're seeing Honda, the longest running sponsor on the PGA Tour, get out. Probably because they've been pretty stuck on the schedule the last couple of years. The field has gotten horrible. If you guaranteed them the top 20 players on tour every 4 years, don't you think they'd sign on for like a dozen more years, right? Like you're going to get into a game you don't want to play with sponsors if you're not rotating these around.
Well, I think what could happen is the money gets more differentiated. So let's say you bring in Apple and say, hey, the cost of doing business for an elevated event is $25 million. And so all of a sudden your overall purse goes up, but then you go to John Deere and say, hey, let's say they don't rotate them around. Hey, your cost of the purse this year is actually going down to $5 million. So it's a net zero if they don't move them around, but the difference becomes greater between the elevated and the non-elevated.
I'll tell you what, sorry, Patrick, if you've ever been involved with these tournament organizers, they take this very, very seriously. I absolutely consent. There's going to be resentment. There is going to be resentment for these non-elevated events that have been on the schedule and done a lot of good work for their communities and are not getting the big boys.
For sure. But you're not beholden to.
I know.
I get it, and
I
and it stinks, but you're not beholden to communities. You're beholden to your freaking product.
I know.
And I think that. Go ahead, Patrick.
I'm fairly certain because they rolled out the last 4 elevator events later than the other ones. I'm like 64% sure that they're rotating the final 4. And I think that's like the Travelers, the Heritage. I forget what the other final 2 ones were.
Phoenix
was
right?
one of them Phoenix?
Yeah,
Potentially.
Phoenix,
and
Travelers,
Wells Fargo.
Heritage, and Wells
Fargo.
But we've seen this week at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am, Davis Thompson was in the field. Jason Sobel tweeted this out. He had him on his radio show. He got a sponsor's invite into next week, and he's like, all right, I'm not playing this week then.
That is weird. Not weird. I think the tour has done a bad job of clarity and marketing of the elevated events. Okay, so Jay meets with a couple of people in Kapalua for 20 minutes, and we kind of get some, and maybe he doesn't have the answers, which I think is probably the case. I think this year, Solly's been saying this at No Line Up, like this year is going to look different both than it used to be and then it will look in 3 years from now. Like this year's a weird year because it's the last wraparound. 24 kind of starts a new, but at some point we need some answers about what, like the clarity around what is an elevated event, who can even get in it. Are they going to rotate around? I hope I'm with Rick. I hope they do. I hope that John Deere gets the top 20 players in the world once every 4 years. I think it would be awesome. And I think it would be a nod to sort of the roots or the foundation of the PGA Tour, which has been around for, almost 100 years.
It's almost too smart. Like I don't, you know what I mean? Like it almost makes too much sense. I don't know why they wouldn't have announced it already. All right. We'll turn our attention to Pebble Beach. 3-course rotation. We'll give some picks. We'll chat one and done. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. The bets, boys. Okay. So, Patrick, just to preview this week a little bit, final course rotation of the season. We are getting the AMs out there with the pros. They're going to play 3 different golf courses. There's going to be a 54-hole cut, and none of these golf courses are particularly long. In fact, they're all quite short. Pebble Beach has some of the smallest greens on the PGA Tour. Maybe a little bit of precision over power this week.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Short, small greens, keep the ball in the fairway, wedge fest, so to speak. Going to be kind of cold. I saw a picture of Spieth wearing a beanie today.
Beanie Spieth is very, very dangerous.
Live. He's very live. I do have a question about the course, Pebble Beach in particular. I don't know if either of you know the answer. That par 5, is it number 6 that goes up the hill before 7? Yeah.
Yep.
That's how numbers work. Did they put an internal OB in there yet along the left side? Remember that?
Oh,
I do remember that. I don't know the answer. I do remember that being talked about. Was it talked about last year, or was it talked about during the U.S. Open a couple of years ago?
Oh,
I think it got brought up first at the U.S. Open. Guys started doing it, and then each year it's like the architect people were like, "This is ruining the sanctity of this course."
Architecture golf Twitter is a dangerous place, but for people that are unaware of what's going on, a lot of guys will go really far left off the tee up 6 and kind of play it up it's not fairway. I don't even know what the area is, but you get a different and I presume better angle into the green if you're going for it in 2. And so we've seen this at other courses. We saw it at TPC Sawgrass when Bryson threatened to go up. What hole was that? Adjacent to 18?
Oh man,
10 or whatever it was, to go up the wrong hole, to play it over the water, up the wrong hole to get a different angle into 18. And it's like, yeah, you can't do that. That's internal out of bounds. We see it. I think Sony has internal out of bounds.
Yeah. Riv does. They can't do the internal OB, but those guys play up the wrong fairway on 15, I think.
Holland
was doing that, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Didn't work out for him, but he did it.
He did it I think he did it every day last year, didn't he?
I think he played it at 1 over. I don't think it worked. I don't think it went as planned. I think I don't remember, but I think the last day he finally figured it out, but he played it all 4 days. Yeah.
All that to say, I don't know the answer to your question, Patrick.
Okay. But back to the discussion at hand. Thank God the course rotations are over after this week. Me personally, I'm not a huge fan of them. But that being said, it is a good trade-off. We're seeing Josh Allen skipping the Pro Bowl to play this week. I think probably with Keith Mitchell again. Then Larry Fitzgerald, but Aaron Rodgers, Josh Jamal.
Sandbagging Larry. He's always in it. It's like anyway.
Yeah, that guy's a 15. I bet he's like a 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Him and Kevin Streelman boat racing everybody. Who's playing with Larry the Cable Guy? Is he back in the field this week?
He's got to be. Does DA Points have like a lifetime exemption into this for winning it with Bill Murray that one year?
Probably.
Let's show the bet board if we have that handy, Mr. Troy, if we could. Thank you much. Okay, this is where we take 100 little nuggets. We go over to Caesars and we allocate 50 of them on a matchup of our choice, 30 of them on a finishing position of our choice, 10 on one outright of our choice, and another 10 on a second outright of our choice. Let's start at the bottom of the board with you, Kyle, and your matchup selection, please.
Yeah, my matchup selection is Davis Riley over SH Kim. Davis Riley, great ball striker. I love him on these small greens. He's a really, really good iron player. I don't love that he's minus 120, but SH Kim hasn't been hitting the ball that well, and I like Davis Riley this week.
Yeah, Davis Riley minus 120 over SH Kim. Patrick, you are doing it. You're going against the defending champ.
I know. I don't want to do this to Kyle's boy. I mean, either of these guys could realistically win this week.
Yeah, true.
But Seamus is like sneaky good on really short courses. You think Bermuda, RSM Classic. He struck the ball pretty well in Abu Dhabi out on the DP World Tour.
Should have won this last year.
Yeah, like 5 strokes at the halfway point.
It's hard to say that when we've seen guys blow like 5-stroke leads with 9 to play, but with 5 with 36, Seamus, you should have won it. Yeah,
so Hoagie, I think he like rates out like first in, every proximity bucket you want to account for.
Yeah.
But if they're slightly off, the around the green game has some holes in it, and I like the fit and plus money at plus 105 for Seamus Power over Tom Hoagie.
Yeah, I'll go with Matthew Neesmith, even money over Taylor Pendrith. And Patrick kind of alludes to this. There's so many wedge shots at Pebble Beach, everything from like 125 yards and in. And Taylor Pendrith is not that dude. He is not the finesse guy. He's the power guy, not very good with his wedges. I think that could get a little bit hairy. And then Neesmith hasn't played as well as I would like, but he's played well here before, which makes sense because he's a good ball striker. So Neesmith,
really good iron player.
Yeah. So hoping this place can get him right a little bit. Top 10s, Patrick, I'll go right back to you. And you actually picked somebody with your name and their name.
Yeah, I'm going heavy on Matt Fitzpatrick this week. I just think he's the best player in this field at the moment. T6, I think last year, T12 at the US Open. His wedges are kind of not great, but I like the talent level. It's still insane to me. He only has 1 PGA Tour win. So I'm going a little, shout out Ben Bernanke, a little too big to fail this week and all in on Matt Fitzpatrick.
Wow. Didn't think we'd get a Ben Bernanke shout out.
Patrick impresses me more and more every single day that we work together. It's really,
he's a cultured man. He's a worldly man.
Have you ever seen him on Instagram? He posts like creative, thoughtful photos, and like he'll be like playing tennis, then he'll be like reading a book, then he'll be like, he's a guy, he's a cool guy.
I'm thirst trapping a little, Rick.
It's working. It's working.
I don't think I need to follow him on Instagram. I don't think I follow him right now.
Yeah, you should get on that. While you do that, I'll tell you that my finishing position is Robbie Shelton top 10. Yeah, going longer down the board, 7-1. Robbie Shelton short off the tee. Not a problem here. What else can he do well? Well, he putts well. He hits his second shots well. And he has legitimate top 10 upside twice in his last 4 starts. So I'm going to say Robbie Shelton, go do your thing, young man, and get yourself a top 10 at 7-1. Are you ready, Kyle?
Yeah, I do follow him.
Okay. Kyle, your finishing position is a dookie. Who is it, please?
Yeah, Alex Smalley, top 20. Quietly playing really good golf. He's been last 20 rounds or so, he's been a really good ball striker, plus 190. He finished, I think, T21, T37 in his last 2 outings. This is a worse turn, or this is a not as talented field as either the Amex or the Farmers, which is his last 2. So I think you can sneak into that top 20 at plus 190.
Shelton top 10, Fitzpatrick top 20, Smalley top 20 are the finishing position wagers. Let's go to outrights. And Kyle, I'll just bounce it right back to you. Give me two winners.
Yeah, I got Spieth and Mav McNeely. Spieth's been just awesome at this course, obviously, over the course of his career. I think he's talked about it. He gets him places like Pebble get him out of his own head. It's not, Palm Springs golf. It's actually can be thoughtful golf depending on if there's weather and stuff. And then Matt McNeely's been really good. He's got, I think he was T33 last year, but a couple of top 10s right before that. And he's not one of the favorites, but he's kind of in that second tier of favorites at 18-1.
Yeah, 18-1 for McNeely, 12-1 for Spieth. Patrick almost pulled the double last week. He had Max Homa, 22-1, cash it, and he also went with Thomas Pieters on the European Tour, something that we didn't ask him to do, and he just did himself. And Pieters finished sixth, so you are feeling it, Patrick. What are we doing here?
36-hole leader, Thomas Pieters, to you. And to the Matt McNeely pick out, I think it was like 21 when he lost to Daniel Berger, that club twirl on the 72nd hole. You guys remember that?
Oh, he was like, it was like a tiger twirl. Just running after it.
Yeah, I got like vertigo from that. It was ridiculous.
It was awesome.
But yeah, Ben Bernanke, Matt Fitzpatrick player of the week, 11-1. But Ben Griffin, sneaky, like, I don't know, like statistically, if many people are playing better than Ben Griffin at in this field since the start of the season. First in birdies are better, fourth in approach, top 10 from 100 to 125 yards. Tasted contention in Bermuda. Didn't turn out great for him, but maybe you can use that experience this week at 60-1.
I think Ben Griffin is a good example. I was on him last week. He didn't, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, but he's a good example of why looking at the numbers matters. Like, he's not on TV. He's not talked about. He's not a big name. And then you look at his numbers, you're like, oh, this guy's playing really well. Maybe I need to look into what he's doing. And so I all that to say, I agree with you, Patrick.
Yeah, playing really well. And I'm not sure we've seen one single shot of his on television this season. Maybe in Bermuda because he was T3 there, but otherwise he's playing pretty great. Ben Griffin, 60-1, Matt Fitzpatrick, 11-1. I'm going for a defense. Tom Hoagie, 22-1. Great wedge player. Nothing has changed. And then Thomas Dietrich at 45-1. I just buy the skills in a weaker field for somebody who's been all over the world playing great. No idea what his winning upside is, but at 45-1 in this weekie, I'll take it. So it's Hoagie, Dietrich, Fitzpatrick, Griffin, Spieth, McNeely, 6 different golfers on the outright board.
Love it.
Best bets. This is where we take an extra 50. We go over and we find the best possible wager. We are not good at these, by the way. So these are more like our worst bets. Hold on, go back. Do we have the season long standings? Because we are a little bit better here. We've got one of us in the black. Also, I don't think Patrick got credit for how can Patrick cannot still be losing with a Homa win from last week? Are these numbers?
No, I was like, I didn't hit like a bet for a while.
That's true.
Like a long time.
Troy says Patrick was down bad. Yeah. Okay. Well, I thought.
Thanks, Troy.
Listen, you're crawling out of the hole. All right, go back to the best bets.
I appreciate it though, Rick.
I tried
for me.
I tried.
You're doing a lot better here.
Yeah. This is tough for all of us, but at least Patrick is taking the heat for us.
Gosh, I was in a mental war with myself over the weekend because I had John Rahm plus 450 for the best bet, but Homa to win. I was like, I kind of want the best bet to hit, but
you had Homa for one and done too, right?
Yeah, it was a lot of mental gymnastics.
That had to outweigh the Rahm
in the end. Yes.
Yeah, but the one and done is very important. All right, KP, you have opted for a matchup between two of the big boys.
Yeah, I've got Hovland over Fitzpatrick. Here's what's interesting about Hovland, Rick, and I'm sure you've looked at his numbers, is he's been really good around the greens over the last probably 3 or 4 months, even better than Fitzpatrick, who has a great short game. Hovland's won a US Am at Pebble Beach, played very well there at the US Open. I think he's broadly speaking, a better iron player than Fitzpatrick, even though Fitzpatrick might be a little bit more accurate. Neither of them has been hitting his irons great recently, but I like Victor Hovland plus money against most players in the world, and that's true this week over Fitzpatrick at Pebble.
Did you see that he went down and recreated the 2018 USAM shot where he's down on
the ice
side?
plant?
Yeah,
I didn't.
Really?
Was that on Twitter today?
I think he put it on Instagram yesterday.
Okay, that's awesome.
He hit it even closer this time.
That was seriously?
Damn.
Yeah, he's so good.
That's crazy.
He's so good.
That was a really impressive USAM because he didn't really have any. I mean, it was like the Eagles in the first through the NFC, right?
We'll take it.
He cruised. It was really impressive.
Victor Hovland plus 105 over Matt Fitzpatrick. Patrick, you're getting a lot of support from the chat, which is always good. Please let us know what your best bet for this week is.
Brandon, my man, I won't let you down.
For those who are only listening, there is a comment from Brandon that says, quote, Patrick, my brother in Christ, take a break from best bets. Why don't you?
no punctuation, which is appreciated.
I don't have enough creative juices for a comeback for that one, but I do have a trivia question for you guys. Who did Victor Hovland beat in the USAM final?
I just saw he boat raced him.
No, it's the kid from the
He was
kid
like 6 and 5.
He played it. Hold on, he played at Cal. Devin Bling.
Correct.
Yeah.
Let's
Great name.
go. Yeah, great name.
It was like 6 and 5, right? He smoked him.
That kid wasn't. He wasn't. I mean, he was good. He was in the USAM final, but his pedigree wasn't amazing.
No. I think he was in the mix at Oakmont too for that one too. But back to other USAM winner, Matt Fitzpatrick, top 20, plus 105. Rick, little transition there. Learned that from you. Learned from the best. But yeah, too big to fail this week, and it's on Matt Fitzpatrick.
Where'd Matt Fitzpatrick win his U.S. Open? Or his USAM, sorry.
It's easy.
Sorry.
And his
I
US
know.
Open.
I just butchered the whole thing.
I don't know, Rick. Can you
It's the country.
give me a hint?
Yeah, Brookline. Seamus Power, top 20. Patrick's right. Seamus Power might win this thing, and I'm not asking him to win it. I'm asking him to finish inside the top 20 plus 125. Plays well on short courses. Striking it, I could just rewind what Patrick said over Tom Hoagie 5 minutes ago, and I would agree with most of it. One final thing to do here, arguably the most important thing to do. It is the reveal of the one and done selections and new standings. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. One and done. Don't release the hounds just yet, Troy. So there has been a sizable shakeup. As everyone knows, Patrick and I got $1.5 million last week. We're now in the 7-figure club. Things are going very, very well. So we're all very happy. The fans have gotten their selection in. Very good. They are, don't reveal just yet. They are lone wolfing it. I will tell you that Greg is lone wolfing it. I will tell you that Patrick is lone wolfing it. And I'll tell you that Mark is lone wolfing it.
I thought I would be too, but I'm not.
You are not. Reveal the picks, please. Boom, boom, boom. There you go. The Kyles have gotten together, Kyle M and Kyle P, to both select Joel Damon. Kyle, you are wow. My eyes, when I look for your name, they usually go directly to the bottom. You are actually much closer to the top. You are just $200,000 out of the lead, and you have a chance to get into that lead this week.
Yeah, I struggled with this. By the way, producer Troy, yeah, I didn't look, but we should probably refrain from putting one and dones in the rundown until like 5 o'clock because they're just sitting there.
The urge to cheat is too good.
Yeah, I didn't look. I wouldn't, but it's they were available anyway. I wanted to pick Mav. I actually wanted to pick Spieth, but I'm probably going to pick him for the Open. And then I wanted to pick Mav, and I kind of wish I would have because it would have kept me with Mark. And then I went to Damon because he's the kind of player that he played really well in the fall. I think he ended with 3 straight top 10s. He plays great at this course. He was T6 last year. he's the kind of player that you want to pick at a non-elevated event, right? He's a good player, but he's not somebody that you would pick at a Phoenix or a Riv. And so I like him this week. I don't love that he hasn't played since, I think, RSM. So what is that? A full 2 months, probably 10 weeks since he's teed it up. But I don't know. I'm excited about the pick. I think he has an opportunity to finish in the top 10, which is kind of what you're going for when you're trying to pick one of these with not as good of a field.
Kyle M, 257,000. Joel Damon. The fans, howl it up, fans. Tom Hoagie, the defending champion, is your lone wolf, 496,000. I've been mushed. Sia at 668 and myself at 1.8 million. Both went with Seamus Power. So that's a missed cut incoming. Patrick, you must be thrilled. You've gone all in on Matt Fitzpatrick. You are within striking range. You could potentially take over the lead this week, and you're the only guy with the favorite.
I think us three are sitting pretty nice because we have been dealt not one, but two kind of trump cards down the road. We think about Mark's little hiccup. We think about Seal last week. And I know there's like a grace period we want to talk about, but I'll have no problem bringing it up later in the season if need be.
The only thing is we just need to, the three of us just need to be on our best behavior so that we don't have any controversy when this thing, we'll disqualify everybody else by the time we get to the end.
I mean, I plan on picking Rom like 4 times. So I don't know what that means for my behavior, but that'll probably happen.
It's a good strategy though. I do like that, Kyle. But yeah, it's Matt Fitzpatrick. I was going through the schedule and with the elevated events and everything, random guys pop in for these non-designated events down the road, typically, like someone will be playing hot or whatever it may be. And so I was okay taking the heavy hitter and the favorite with Fitzpatrick this week.
I like that. I think that's a good pick.
Greg's going to try to break this tie with Sia. They're both at 668,353. So that is Greg going with Justin Rose, lone wolf there. Let's see. That just leaves Mark. Mark went with Mav McNeely, which was probably the play, right? He's probably going to be the most popular pick in one and dones with his ties to Pebble Beach. We have all opted to go in a different direction, but he's at 3.1 million and he's the man for us to chase down.
Big week for the Immelman family last week. They're great.
Big week for the Immelmans. In order,
I ran into to Papa Immelman at the PGA show.
I ran into Trevor at the gym.
Oh.
They're it's like there's more than 3 of them.
Are they just multiplying?
Yeah, they're everywhere.
So.
They're everywhere.
Mark somehow seems to be great at this game. I think Mav is going to have a really good week.
Why is Mark so good at this?
I don't know.
I don't know either. From top to
because
bottom.
if you put Mark in a situation, not that I should talk about this, but where he has to make best bets and get kind of deep in the weeds, he's not. He. I think it's maybe just because he cares about this more than some of the other stuff.
I think he understands the ebbs and flows of tour life. And it's why he has like so many guys that like already picked for spots because he knows they're going to play well. And he understands, like, he doesn't get caught up in the week to week minutia that you can overthink it. He has a very good, like 30,000 foot view of the tour.
Yeah, that's for sure correct.
From top to bottom, Mark at 3.1 million, Mav McNeely. Kyle Porter, 2.9 million, Joel Damon. Patrick, $2 million, Matt Fitzpatrick. Rick, 1.8, Seamus Power. Greg, 668,000, Justin Rose. Sia Najad, 668,000, Seamus Power. The fans, 496,000, Tom Hoagie. Kyle M, 257,000, Joel Damon. Boom. Yes.
Are we having Kyle M on next week? I mean, it's a really slow start to the season for him. I feel like he needs to kind of rejuvenate here with the designated event. Potentially. His
if we had approval ratings for each one of us, his would be by far the highest.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah.
Q rating is extraordinary.
Anything else before we get out of here?
It's not. We'll talk about this more next week, but Rory and Rahm are just so far far and away the two best players in the world, and it's not. I don't even know who's third. I did the Power 18 for CBSSports.com on Monday, so I basically ranked the top 18 guys based on how they're playing right now, not based on world rankings or anything. And I just didn't even know who to put third. And I put Colin Morikawa. He's been playing really well. I think that him not winning obscures how well he's been playing. But and I tweeted out some of their numbers, but I'm just blown. I mean, Rory and Rahm have won 7 of their last 14 combined events.
Yeah, that's a joke.
That's a joke. And I get some of them are European Tour and not as good of fields, but I'm really interested to see how that sort of comes to a head over the next 6 weeks with Phoenix, Riv, Bay Hill, and Players Championship. I mean, you got some big boy stuff coming up with 2 guys playing some of the best golf of their career.
It's gonna be sick, and the Honda's in there as well.
It's gonna
can't forget about that.
It is.
I want to put a bow on Treegate. I think in general, just put a bow on it. I know, whatever, but I was sitting on this. I hate that rule. If you know the ball went in the tree, just play it there, second shot.
It's pretty stupid. Like you're saying, like obviously it's in there. Where else could it possibly be?
Yeah, like all right, just drop in the area, second shot, no penalty.
Oh, no penalty.
No penalty.
Okay.
If it gets stuck in a tree.
Well,
yeah, I already
we saw what happened to Dylan Fratelli when you try to hit it from a tree. Like, come on.
The problems are it's just this overarching rule of having to identify your ball, right? So like, there's going to be so many more. Like, I agree with you. If it's in a palm tree 30 feet above your head, like, let's all be smart here. But it's like when it's in a thorn bush around the corner that, like, it's going to cause issues.
That's fair. Yeah, and I mean,
we should have a palm rule.
Gorse.
I
didn't even think about Gorse.
I don't know. I think you should have to hit it out of the tree. Just get up there like Greller did at Pebble.
Shout out Sergio. That wasn't even for Spieth's ball, right?
Well, I think it's 2 different things. I think it's. Oh yes. I think it was for. Somehow it wasn't for Spieth, but then Sergio was that at Honda? Somewhere in Florida.
Definitely Florida.
Yeah. It's an interesting. Brett's comment right now is actually what I was going to bring up. DJ Pyhowski was talking about this, about how he actually likes that you have to hit out of divots because it shows off. I mean, it sucks, right? It's very unlucky, which is sort of how I feel about the tree thing. I don't know. I think I disagree with you, Patrick. I think it should be a penalty. It's part of. I mean, Rory at where did he win the PGA? Kiowa. Remember we hit it in the tree there?
Yeah, number 3.
You're probably still in elementary school back then, but
Rory tree. It's gone now. It's not there anymore.
Is it?
Yeah, I played last
year.
Okay.
Oh wow, what a flex!
76.
What?
Oh yeah.
What'd you say? 76?
76, 4 over 76.
Come on.
Oh,
that's a hard course.
At the Ocean Course at Kiowa?
At the Ocean Course.
The
tough wind.
No, come on.
Yeah. I mean,
wait, was the final few holes into or downwind?
All into.
Oh.
That
yeah, I think 16 is the par 5.
I'm gonna adopt you, and you're gonna make me so proud. As my
I hit
son.
like a 4-iron for my 3rd in there.
What, into 16?
Yeah, the par 5.
The one where Phil hit it like 380 in 2021.
Yeah.
What tees were you playing from?
Like mid 6.
God,
76.
That's good.
Yeah. I think my stroke gains approach was potentially like. I might have gained like an all-time record.
I'm gonna make you a golfer profile on rickrungood.com.
Yeah, let's do it.
Start making scores like that.
Don't have my strokes gained putting.
Just as like a pro, you're gonna make him a profile?
Yeah, I'm just gonna put him in there. So like if you search his name, it'll pop up. Like it won't show up in any field, but like if you happen to type in Patrick McDonald, like there's random guys who played like 2 European Tour events 30 years ago. So yeah, like I'll just make Patrick a profile.
That'd be a great Easter egg. That'd be fun.
I'm gonna play this guy 6,000 cash and DraftKings.
Yeah, he's never been in any field, but he shot a 76 at the Ocean Course last year.
You have just as good a chance as Devin Bling if scoring some points.
All right.
Okay, that's all I got.
All right.
Yep.
Producer Troy does all the hard work behind the scenes. Thank you very much. Patrick McDonald available on Twitter wow, tough scene at Amateur Status. Kyle Porter available at Kyle Porter CBS. You can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut. We'll catch you next time.